This is the Identity Shockwave podcast, where we explore the journey of self-discovery and the many layers of who we are as we ride this wave called life. 4 questions, real people, endless exploration. I'm your host, Lori Vaitzig. Hey, you made it! Welcome to the Identity Shockwave podcast, where we explore all things identity and self-discovery. My name's Lori, and I'm so stoked that you are here. And while you're here, please be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, leave us a 5-star review, a written review, leave us some nice little comments on social media, and that would just make me so happy. So on a personal level, if you know me, you might know that I'm a bit of an astrology nerd. Well, rather, I'm a bit of a nerd of anything of the mystical, metaphysical. I have a daily meditation practice. I do yoga. I even started a morning sadhana we are doing at Astrologer Yoga, which is where I work, which is a practice from 5 to 6 a.m., which I did today, but it's for 30 days straight. And I'm, have some things going on, so I won't be able to do the full 30 days, but I'm definitely going to do more of it. Anyway, what I'm getting at is that I love these things. They have served me and my body and my mind so well. It's really just elevated my own personal spirituality. It's giving me a lot of points of reflection and introspection. And some of these practices, such as reiki or energy healings or even astrology, isn't for everybody. But if you have someone in your life that enjoys it and is getting a lot of positivity out of it, then leave them alone. Let them enjoy it. Everyone's got their own thing, But in my own personal experience, when these things are integrated into your life, they can just serve you so well. So if you're feeling a little lost or need a little bit of guidance, my humble suggestion for you is look to the stars. And today's guest does exactly that. She's been practicing astrology for over 15 years. And it doesn't stop at astrology. She's got her hands in all things metaphysical and mystical. She's also a small business owner, a recent MBA grad, and not to mention, she's got style. But I'll let her do the talking. The Astrofashionista herself, Tamerri Ater. Tamerri, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited to learn about you today. So let's get right into it then. If you could boil it down to a couple of words, how would you introduce yourself? What's your elevator pitch?
My 3 words are leader, healer, teacher. And I came up with those words. I had worked with an executive coach. Her name's Christy Rutherford. Shout out to Christy and Vision Finder. And she helps women in corporate, America really know their value and their worth. And a lot of the work that we did was it wasn't around work stuff. It was around soul stuff and personality stuff. And she said, these are your 3 words after working with me for so long. And it really resonated with me. And I'm an astrologer. I've worked in the beauty industry for, a long time, but I have these 2 parts of me. And if I were to combine everything that I do, it's all purpose driven. It's all about helping others really step into their power by getting to know themselves better through my own pain and my struggle. So I think that's where, and my middle name literally means born with leadership, Zamea. So my dad, gave me that. Well, my mom really gave me that middle name. My parents gave me the name. So there's the leader part, and the healer part is, the astrology work, the Reiki healer work. My brand, Gift of the Nile, is a spiritual wellness brand to help people have micro moments of peace throughout their day. So that's the healer. And then the teacher is that, I want to share the knowledge. I don't think, I think every generation should give back to the next. And so I've learned from a lot of great teachers across the board in all areas of my life. And so I think it's a responsibility for me to be a teacher too. So those are my 3 words.
Oh, I love that. And it sounds like, you got your hand in many different things. You are a very accomplished person as far as I know. Yeah, for sure. I know you just got your master's, which is a huge accomplishment.
Yes. I'm really glad I did that. It was something that I've always wanted to do, and I didn't know when or how, but the stars aligned perfectly at the right time. And I'm so glad I did it at this point in my life. It's been one of the best decisions I've ever made. So, and I was able to meet Ken, which is how I met you. So
Yeah.
it's such a blessing. an angel in my life, seriously.
Mine as well, for sure. Oh, man. Yeah, and it seems like too well, let me just fangirl for a second too on your business, Gift of the Nile, that Ken introduced me to. I have some right here. I have my fire spray here that I spray into my booth every time before I have a session. I spray this and it, like, centers me and it gets me fired up, and I really love it, and I'll say, I was looking on your website and I didn't realize this, but the name itself has so much to do with your own identity also. Can you talk a little
Yes.
bit more about the brand?
Yeah, so my name Tamerri means gift of the Nile or gift from God's land, beloved land. It's an ancient name for Egypt.
So
Um,
cool.
so Egypt was not Egypt when it was given that name, but it was Kemet or Tamerri, it was referred to. And so, yeah, my dad gave me that name. He's an African history scholar. Egypt has been a big part of my life. Growing up, it's my favorite place in the world. And so, when in having work in beauty and making product, I work in product development. I've always thought, well, maybe I'll have my own brand one day, but I never wanted to do something that was just like, let's put out more makeup or more skincare. Like, I feel like that was covered. I really, me having doing my astrology work. So while I was working through beauty and working my way up in that industry, I was doing astrology on the side. I was, doing readings for coworkers at my desk. And I said, maybe it's something that's with the astrology and this, but I didn't want to just slap a zodiac sign on a product. That
Sure.
didn't make sense to me either. And then it just started like coming to me, like the aromatherapy. I taught a wellness spa class at Fashion Institute of
Mm,
Design and Merchandising here in LA. And I said, well, maybe it's something about the wellness. And then when I thought about like who really embodied that whole wellness or where it stemmed from, it's the ancient world, not it's very old, right? And so I said, eat duh, like, and and so I just literally got a download and I got fired up. And this was probably maybe 2019, going into 2020, where I started to get the idea for how the brand would come together. And I'm like, what would I name it? And my brother's like, Gift of the Niles, duh. Like, I'm trying to search through all these names.
yeah.
Yes. And I think it just kind of worked perfectly. Obviously, it's an Egyptian rooted brand, and not just East Africa, because the Nile River runs through several countries. Last name Ater is Sudanese. And so the Nile really begins in the area where my name stems from. And so it just all kind of flowed and connected. And I got really excited. And I've always loved mythology, specifically
Mhm.
Egyptian mythology. And so, yeah, most of the products, they're all named after Egyptian gods. All the formulas are really formulated. I formulate everything to be connected to what the energy I want the person to take. So
Mm.
oils that I use, they're connected to the gods. It's a lot of thought that goes into it. So I think people just see a product, but it's very intentional. So for me, it really came from my family history. And I tell this story because I think it's important. I lost my mom to suicide when I was 13, and that was
Oh,
like hard and life-changing thing. And so my healing journey started when I was really young. And so my products are about healing. So it's like a nod to her. And then the history part is a nod to my dad. So it's really just my family in a brand and my personal love. So I'm really passionate about it.
I'm passionate about that whole story. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank
Wow.
you.
And like, yeah, it seems like you said everything about it is intentional. And I can see that very much. If you go to your website, you could see your story. And I do have aromatherapy roller product that you gave me that when I bought something at one of the events that you were at. And I believe you said that the ingredients you brought back from Egypt itself.
Yes, it was the Hathor Love Potion
Mm-hmm.
oil.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did bring those. I carried those back from Egypt, the oils. It's a little roller. It smells good. It has jasmine, vanilla, and papyrus and
It's
blue lotus.
beautiful.
I actually rubbed it. I rubbed that on myself during my meditation this morning because, it's really good for self-love. And ironically, I launched that collection, around the time I decided to get divorced. Like, I was having this, my ex-husband was at the shoot, and then I went on and so it's one of those things where like I have to live through the product. I have to live through, the things that I'm telling other people to do to make sure that it's really authentic. I mean, I wasn't planning to get divorced, but it just, one of those things that happened. And I really use those products to help me on my journey to more self-love. So it's
Yeah.
not romantic love. The romantic love starts with yourself.
Yeah, so much authenticity in that. You
Yeah.
said there's Blue Lotus in that?
Yes, yes.
Oh, I just got turned on to Blue Lotus. I work at a yoga studio and we have Blue Lotus oil and tea. And anytime I drink that tea before I meditate, I go somewhere. It's
Right,
amazing.
right. It's so good. Yes, I
Yeah,
love that.
such a powerful herb. Also, just like to fangirl a little bit more about Gift of the Nile because I want everyone to see it. I've even got some for some family members. This packaging is so good. Like, you do market it as a luxury product, and it is that. Like, the spray, I'm gonna spray it so you can hear. It, like, distributes the mist so well. Like, I'm not lying. Like, I'm not just trying to blow smoke. I really do love this stuff, so
Thank
everyone needs
you
to check it out.
so much.
And you said here too, so it goes by the elements, and you also said that it's meant to complement your astrological sign. So for fire, I would imagine those are like Aries and Leo and those types of signs.
Yes, but if you don't, you can use it that way, or you can use it based on what you need. So if you're an earth sign and you don't feel fiery, then you
Hmm.
would use fire. So everyone needs all four elements. We all need them all.
Yeah,
So you just use what you need, but it's fun to gift based on someone's zodiac sign as well.
sure. Yeah. And so you mentioned you actually carried these things back from Egypt when you were there. And I'm not sure how many times you've been there before, but when you step onto that land, do you just feel like so connected to it?
Definitely, it feels like home and a lot of joy and connection. And also like in astrology, there's a thing called astrocartography where it shows what
Uh-huh.
lands you could be connected to. And my Venus line runs through, Egypt. So, and I'm a Taurus, so that I just feel like, oh, it's not somewhere I need to live,
Sure, yeah.
but it's one of those places that just fills your soul. And my godfather does tours there every year. My dad did tours when he was younger, and so I'm always pumped when people go. I love seeing the pictures. I love. Hopefully, I can get there this fall and take some people with me because a lot of people want to take the journey, and it's just a beautiful magical place with so much history, so much magic. And I don't take it for granted that it's still there and we can go see it and experience it.
I was just watching a program last night about the Sphinx and the pyramids of Giza, and I can only imagine, like, I know when you go there, there is a lot of touristy aspects around it, but I don't care. If I were
Right,
just to stand in front of those structures and just feel how ancient it is, because we don't really have anything like that over here, you know?
right,
And,
right.
like, I feel like that must be just such an awe-inspiring experience. And you mentioned the astrocartology. I looked at my own chart too, and crazy enough, I'm not sure which line it is, but one of my lines runs through the town that my ancestors are from in Sicily. So I was like,
Oh, I love
this is,
that.
and I run through Los Angeles and New York where I'm from. So I'm like, there is something to all this.
I love that so much. Yeah, no, it's definitely a fun thing to look at, like what places you might be connected to or where you should travel. I did a podcast episode on that before too, on the whole astrocartography thing. So it's fun to check out.
Oh, I'll have to listen to that one. So it sounds like, again, you're very authentic in everything that you've pursued. It starts with you in order for you, because you have to heal yourself before you can heal others.
Right.
And while you've been practicing all these different modalities and coming into your own, have you ever felt like a fraud or have you ever experienced imposter syndrome?
All the time. And I think more so not when I'm doing the spiritual work, that is when I probably feel most like myself. And a lot of that is me alone or with another person. So it's not like, I think the most imposter syndrome I felt is like in a professional setting or I'm around a lot of successful people. And I struggled with that my entire life. I don't think people know that, but it's definitely, it's intimidating to be in a room with people that have accomplished a lot or they're super rich or and
Mm-hmm.
I've been in a lot of those rooms just throughout of my career and definitely I've struggled with anxiety. I've struggled with social anxiety. I'm a very social person, so it doesn't make sense. But a friend of mine is a therapist, and she said, no, it does make a lot of sense. It doesn't mean that you don't like social interaction. You experience the anxiety more, so it's even more taxing because you are a social person. And so
Mm.
really working through that. So yeah, I've dealt with all of that. It's something that I still always am continuously aware of. I don't think it's one of those things that goes away. I think you just find ways to, work on it meditation, journaling, awareness, breathing, breath work is really helpful for a lot of situations. So yeah, I've definitely struggled with imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I resonate with a lot of that, and especially I know you come from the corporate world too. I
That's the
think we're
most
all
stressful place.
it's the most stressful place, but to be honest, I feel like we're all putting on a face when we're in those
Right,
boardrooms. Like we're all
right,
trying to figure it out. Unless you're like an older person that's been in the game for like 20 plus years, like no one has it figured out. We're all approaching these things for the first time, but especially when you mention like if someone has more money or something like that, it's always like, like, do I belong here? Like, oh God,
right.
I had to
And
leave corporate America for that reason.
yeah, it can be very stressful. My exec coach that I work with, she said, like in the boardroom, it's just one person's inner child arguing with another person's inner child. And so it's like, which makes complete sense, especially when there's
Wow.
conflict. And so, like to your point, yes, everyone's just kind of figuring it out. And we just because you're in a professional setting doesn't mean you cut off those other aspects of yourself. It's impossible, which is why I
Hmm.
think people should show up as their full self in their work because those things are going to come up and then it might come up as you snapping on someone or argument or not getting along or you're going to attract people that should really point out the things you should work on in the workplace whether it's through a boss and so yeah it can be a very stressful place. I'm happy to kind of be out of that as well and be in like my
Yeah.
own thing even though I do love business but I definitely want to do it for myself and do it from a heart-centered place.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, your inner child fighting with other people's inner childs. That's
Yeah, all of the ego.
oh my god, so much ego. That's so
Yeah,
funny, and all the triggers that do come up. Yeah, I've done a lot of reflecting since having worked in, like, a corporate job, and it's really interesting. I tried to use a lot of mindfulness before I would go into meetings and try to, like, center myself and wish that person well, especially if
right,
it was someone I didn't get along with, but then they do their thing and then I get set off because 'cause I'm like a fiery person, so,
right.
it's hard to, handle that sometimes, but also you seem like a super creative person as well, and I feel like
Yeah.
creative minds have a little bit harder of a time in those types of settings.
Right, right. Yeah, it's for sure. Definitely. I definitely resonate with that.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
let's get out of that because 'cause we're out of that now.
Stress
I wanna
management.
talk a little bit more about, like, your astrology journey because it seems like it's something that's very near and dear to you. I remember for myself as a kid, the only exposure I had to it was in, like, the newspaper. You'd have, like, your
Right.
little, like, horoscopes written up, and I'd always go right to mine. I'm a Libra, and I always, like, was just so curious about it, but there wasn't anything else other than, like, if you got, like, a magazine or something like that. And now we have everything at our fingertips. So I'm curious what drew you to astrology?
Yeah, I love this question. It was really just part of my destiny, I think. When I was a baby, I had a natal chart reading when I was
Cool.
an infant, and my dad's friend conducted this ceremony, and he did my chart at the ceremony. So I was not even 1 year old.
That's so
Um,
cool.
yeah, and I found out later. So it's not what I knew about the ceremony, but I didn't know he did the chart there. I found out later. But astrology was something that was kind of we talked about it in our house. And I remember like my friend in elementary school, and I live right by my elementary school. She was like asking me my zodiac sign, and I didn't even know what that was. I was 6, and I asked my
Mm.
dad, and he kind of like explained what it was, and we had like a big picture of constellations in our house, and so
Oh,
it's one of the things that I was always intrigued by. And again, reading horoscopes but I didn't learn how to read charts until I was in my first job out of college. And I had obviously experienced a lot as a young adult and kind of trying to find my way, like we all do when we are young and trying
mhm.
to entering the world. And so the Astro Twins, the
I know
astrologer,
them.
I love them, Opie and Tally.
Mhm.
Their manager worked in my office in Beverly Hills, and so I was like, "Oh, I love astrology," and they were like, "Oh," and Trish is her name. She's like, "Oh, well, they can do a reading for you." So they did, and they looked at me and they're like, "You're either a Taurus or a Scorpio." And I'm a Taurus, but I have a Scorpio rising, and your rising
Ooh.
is what you're projecting to the world. And I was like, oh, okay, I need to learn how to do that. Like how to learn how to do that. So
Yeah.
that really started my studies. I mean, I have so many books, but like one of the first couple books I read cover to cover on astrology and on chart readings was because of that. And then I just like dove deep. I started doing readings for friends, and I called everybody. I sent an email out like, "Give me your birth times," and it was something I did for fun for a while, and obviously discovering myself. And then my boyfriend at the time, Capricorn, was like, "Well, you should start getting paid for doing this, because like." And I'm like, "Oh, nobody's gonna pay for that. Like, this is
In this
almost
town?
right, but this is almost 20 years ago, so it's not one of
Oh,
those things where people are, really. Astrology is not as popular as it is now back
true.
then. And so anyway, long story short, I finally mustered of the courage to, like, I'm just gonna like send out an email saying, "Hey, I'm open for business." Another boyfriend did my website. Um,
Nice.
and I just started like organically doing readings for people and charging. And then it became like a thing that I just did in the evenings or the weekends while I was working. But then I really leaned into it and started putting it in my portfolio for work. So when I would like interview, I would say, "Hey, I'm an astrologer also." And I think that really helped, because people were more intrigued versus like turned off.
Mhm.
Um, and then I started doing collaborations with beauty brands. So there would be like, I'd do readings for like Smashbox or Glam Glow. And then when I was at Verse heading product development, I did an event where I did readings, but it was like I had launched the products. So it was one of those things where it all kind of started to come full circle. And I think that really helps, just showing up as myself. And I mean, I have Venus in the sixth house, so that's beauty and women and connection. And so I need that. I have a lot of women clients. And so the fact that I worked in a female dominant industry also helps, because a lot of us were going through the same things and coming up and growing up together. So that's kind of how the journey started. And I still love it as much as I did. It's just one of the things that I get a lot of joy from when I'm like helping people and they email me and they're like, "Oh, you changed my life," or "This happened and I can't believe it." That's really fulfilling because I know I'm doing some good work.
Yeah, and that's such a testament to being unapologetically yourself in any
Yeah.
situation. You came forward as with your truth and as your truest self,
Yeah.
and that benefited you in a professional setting. And that's like, I love that, because sometimes we feel like we have to mask our true selves in those types of settings, but you're not doing anybody a favor by hiding back your truest self. So that's
Right, right.
amazing. And you're so generous with your time too, especially on socials. Like, you'll put up a story or something like, "Give me your signs." I'm like, "Oh, I'll do it." And I always do it. And you always write back. And it's like, it's so exciting just for being somebody that participates in it. Like, when you do that, I don't know how many people actually like respond. I'm sure you get a lot, but it's so nice when you see people share their gifts like that for free, I guess you could say. It's
Yeah.
it's so it's so exciting to participate in. But I also noticed that you also do Reiki, and do you read tarot as well?
I do, yes. I'm into anything that's like mystical and metaphysical. I've probably tried it or done it. Yeah, so Reiki, I decided something. I had friends that were Reiki practitioners and had it done on me, and then something just told me to do. I don't know. One day I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna try this out." And this woman, Rhonda, she's here in LA. It's called Reiki by Rhonda. Her company's called, and now I think it's called Wellness Uprising. She's a Reiki master, and I really liked her. So I, went and learned from her. And I just knew it would be a good supplement to people. Like, I can identify what you're going through in your chart, and maybe I can help you take it a step forward by doing the Reiki. And I do it, a lot of it is just virtual now, because obviously I have clients all around the world, so I can't physically be there.
Yeah.
But it's something that I like having a tool in my back pocket
Mhm.
for. And you can do self Reiki. I mean, when my dog was sick, I was giving him Reiki
Oh.
years ago. My dad was in the hospital with a stroke. It was one of those things. So it's just a good tool to have to know how to do.
Yeah, for sure, especially in the fields that you're in. My dog also, my past dog, like, was getting Reiki treatments also, and this was probably like 11 years ago, and at that time, I wasn't really fully aware of that, and I'm like, "Oh my god, my dog's getting this. That's so cool." It works for
Right.
everybody, any
Work
living
for
thing.
everyone. You can send Reiki to like water. Like my Lorana would be like, "Send the Reiki to your food," or send your like, or send it to people and you think they need it. Like, I was like,
Yeah, charge it up.
charge it up.
Um,
Yeah.
oh, I
So
love it. Yeah, it
uh,
seems like you're really just locked in and leveled up spiritually, and I love that, and it radiates,
I
throughout you.
try. I try. Yeah. I
You're
think
doing
that
it.
Yeah, thank you.
So you mentioned like a lot of things, but of all of these things that we've been discussing, which parts of your identity make you most proud and which have you struggled with the most?
Well, I love this question. I think the thing that makes me most proud is that I am like I get afraid a lot. I have a lot of I'm very anxious. And I think that's why the spirituality is so important for me to do every day and the wellness and the self-care because it just helps me through. I mean, I have Saturn in my first house. I don't know if people know astrology, but it's
Hmm.
conjunct my ascendant. It's a very tight energy. It's like someone that feels pressure all the time,
Mm,
pressure to achieve, pressure to like you just walk around feeling this sense of responsibility. And that's exhausting
mm,
for especially for a Taurus that wants to relax.
yeah,
I have this opposition in my chart between, Scorpio planet, a lot of Scorpio planets, Taurus energy, and then the Aquarius moon. It's called a T square. So I'm constantly getting this pressure. But aside from that, I still try. So like even when things scare me, I still try. I still go through it because I want to really stretch and challenge myself. And I don't want to get to the end of my life and have any regrets. And
yeah.
I also want to like really fear what's on the other side of this whole earth thing.
Mm,
And I'm like, if I have an assignment to show up as a spiritual person and to really learn as much as I'm supposed to learn, I want to ace the assignment.
yeah.
um, so I really just try to stretch myself, and I think that has helped me a lot. And then the things that you said, the second part is like what I'm not so
What you're proud of, most proud of.
that's what I'm most proud. Well, I think that is, I would say I'm most proud of the fact that I'm able to show up every day, right, despite the feeling of fear or
Ah,
despite the feeling of anxiety. Like I still try, like I will always try. And that's also Mars in the first house. I'm like, let me go after it and just do it. And the second part is things that I've struggled with.
yeah.
Um, I would say relationships, love
Hmm.
relationships. It's been really enlightening for me because younger, even in high school, I thought I was gonna marry Kobe Bryant because he lived around the corner from my high school. I'm like, I don't want these high school boys. So I was never really like boy crazy, but there got to a point where I did like from 17 to till I was married, which was I just got a divorce last year. So I'll be 40 this year. So 17 to 39, I've pretty much been in relationships like
Hmm.
with years.
Yeah.
And I think there's been a lot of revelations around that. And I have Venus in Aries and its detriment. It's not a great place for it to be. It's in the sixth house, giving more than you're receiving. And obviously, when you lose your parent in the way that I lost mine, your most nurturing parent, you're always trying to look for approval in some way from people or get that love that you never, but then you're also afraid of it. So there,
Yeah.
like you want it, it's the thing that you want the most. You don't even know how to open up really fully to receive. And I've been aware of this. So it's not something that I haven't always been aware of, but that is the thing that probably comes the least easy to me, even though I've always been able to attract the love and, have had really fulfilling relationships. They've all been beautiful lessons for me if I look back and I don't regret any of them.
Mhm.
But obviously, I want a more going forward because I do want to get married again, and I do want I want a true partner and a friend and someone that I can, do the rest of my life with. I'm very conscious now about how can I not repeat some of those past things that I experienced, which I think a lot of people can relate to, right?
Sure.
Um, and there's never going to be a part of your life. No one's life is just like this. You're always going to have challenges. You're always going to have something that's like your Achilles heel. So if I
Hmm.
had to pick an Achilles heel, it would probably be that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
When you meet somebody new that you're interested in, how soon do you ask them their astrology?
Oh my God. Yes. It's one of those things where I do ask. I probably right off the bat, if you're being honest, because they always ask you, what do you do?
Yeah.
So like, for me, like, well, I'm an astrologer, like that's always gonna come up. It's been a while since I've like actually met someone I didn't know already and like was interested in them. But yeah, that I thought about that. Like it should be one of those things where I don't want to know anything and really
Yeah.
get to know the person outside of their chart, right?
Hmm.
Having that chart is a lot of information.
Or if they're like, "Oh, I'm a Virgo," you're like, "I'm out."
Right, 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 right. Yeah, it's like this list of signs that I've already tried, and yeah, so it's hilarious. So yeah, but I encourage people. Like, I do a lot of love readings, and I'll say, like, they'll say, well, who should I be with? I'm like, well, you might be compatible with this or that. But I always encourage people, like, just get to know them first. Like,
Mhm.
you can't, like, the chart is a two-dimensional representation of your potential, of your life path, your journey, but it's not like set in stone. I feel like we still have free will, and people live their charts in different ways. You're gonna have people that have two like very similar charts. Maybe they were born in the same day and the same, city or whatever, and they literally have two different experiences, but they have similarities, obviously. So you don't know what the external manifestation of someone's chart is going to be. So you have to get to know them. And so I try to take that. I try not to get too wrapped up in that, but it's really hard.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Especially when I'm like going through a difficulty. I'm like, okay, what's the Saturn is square my moon? And I'm like, oh, like, okay, how do I get around this?
You have like the chart like above your head, like that meme, and
Right,
you're like trying to figure it out. Yeah,
exactly.
if I were to had asked my husband right off the bat, I'm a Libra, he's an Aries, and we are a year and
Oh,
a half apart to almost the day. I'm October 3rd, he's April 4th. So, like, we
mm.
are almost exactly polar opposites, and with my limited knowledge of astrology, at that time at least, I would have been like, "This is bad, this is a sign, we are like, water and oil, like, this is not gonna work," but, like, we are such a good partnership, so
Right.
it's not
No, and
always what you.
opposites attracts. Like I think I've seen a lot of successful partnerships where someone's sign was the opposite sign of theirs because it's balance. It creates a whole. If you're a unit, you're literally creating the whole by having both sides of the spectrum. And then there's also so many aspects in your chart, and I think this is where people don't do themselves a good service by Googling things or
Mhm.
saying, because you need an expert that's going to tell you about the aspects, all the degrees. It's very intricate, like how the two charts interact. And then you have a composite chart, which is both of your charts together.
Oof.
So you don't know just based off of someone's sun sign if you're going to be compatible with them. So I always tell people, don't like, that's a good starting point, like how we generally get along. But don't rule someone out just because their sun sign isn't in harmony with your sun sign, because there's so much that goes into it's called synastry in astrology.
Mhm. Yeah, I need to book a reading with you. I've never had my chart actually read. At the studio I work at, there is an astrologer, and when we first met, she's like, "Yeah, put in your chart here." And she looked at something, I forget what it was, and she's like, "Did you have a very hard childhood?" I was like, "Yeah." She could
Oh,
see that like right off the bat.
right,
It
right.
was
It's probably maybe
amazing.
Saturn in the fourth house or Pluto or something like that at the bottom of your chart. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Oh, yeah, Pluto is in, like, my 6th house or something. I have my chart over here. I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a lot about showing up for yourself and the challenges that you've experienced, and a lot of the times we have to work through these things and actually confront them to become who we're meant to be and, like how you were saying, like, meet these challenges for the next chapter, for the next phase of existence, and I can't help but think about not only your own traumas that you experience throughout your life, but like generational too. And
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot
Mm-hmm.
of thought and processing over the past year since I took a trip to Italy about my own generational trauma and how I'm trying to like break those ties now in my life because people aren't always aware of that. Is that something that you've given like a lot of thought to and you try to incorporate into your
Oh,
own practices?
100%, 100%. Yeah, it's lineage. I mean, the bottom of your chart, your IC, the fourth house, that's the foundation. And so I always try to bring that up when I'm doing a reading for people because you can't ignore it. It's like if you're building a house and the foundation is cracked, even if the house is up, that foundation being cracked doesn't go away. So
Hmm.
it's the same when you have this generational stuff. You're trying to build this like life for yourself, but there's all this stuff that you need to explore and take into account as you're on your journey. So there's no way to ignore that. And so I think we all have family patterns. And this can be explained. I think I love astrology because it can explain a lot of the generational differences between like millennials or, boomers. And because those outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, those are generational type of energies. And so I was born during Pluto and Scorpio. I'm 1984. So like, Pluto stays in the sign for quite some time. So people, I find that with generations, we have a different way. Like I feel like that generation is more aware of spirituality. We're willing to go deep to break the patterns. And then Pluto moved into Sagittarius, enlightenment. Those people they're also spiritually enlightened. Then it moved into Capricorn. They're doing the hard work. And so I'm getting a lot of clients that are like in their like 20 in their Saturn return. They're like in their late 20s, early 30s. And I noticed generationally, these people are just they're more aware. They've seen, and I think every generation, again, in theory, should get better. I don't know if it's happening, but in theory, it should get better. And so my whole point is that if you really explore and do the work and you're willing to do different and acknowledge that the sacrifices they made helped you get to where you are. That's what ancestral work is, also appreciating your ancestors. They were doing the best that they could at the time with the knowledge they had. But also they're passing you the baton. How can you take what they did and make it better? So I'm really, really keen on that. I mean, we grew up talking to our ancestors, pouring libation. It was one of those things in my household that was like, we acknowledged that, we call their names out. And I think, and my ex-husband was actually really into that work as well. So I think it's important for people to explore their ancestry, like where you came from and why you're here, how that affects you today.
Wow, I love all of that. I want to come over, by the way.
You're welcome. Definitely welcome.
I want to come over and chant to my ancestors. All of them will be like,
Yes, yes. When I brought pulling cards, I'm like, spirit guides, God, ancestors, angels, come show me what I need to know. Like,
yeah.
it's that simple. Just tell me, what do you want?
Oh, I love that. You were mentioning how, like, the planetary alignments of the different generations, I never took that into consideration. Here I am thinking like boomers. It's just that they come from this like lack mentality, which is why they're just always so holding on to what they have. But really, it could be written in the stars.
Right. If you go back before Pluto and Scorpio was Libra, that's justice. I'm actually doing a post. I'm an astrology editor now for astrology.com. And I'm doing a post on the Pluto transits, how they, generationally, how it was different, like what topics were prominent, whether it's civil rights or when you're focused on your well-being and your especially as a person of color, you're literally focused on your survival in a country. You don't have time to be worried about spiritual ancestry work. The people are telling you can't go using the bathroom in the same place that they're, you know what I mean? So like I take all of that into account. It's just different. Like, and we're not better. They made it so that we can be more enlightened, and so I think it's the same, like Gen Z, like, oh, millennials, like we made it. We opened the door to the spiritual world and the enlightenment and the therapy so that you guys can go and focus more on that. Yeah, you have a lot of struggles, but like every generation opens the door for the next.
Yeah, listen, we went through the AOL chat rooms and we did the work so that you don't have to suffer today. Okay? All right.
We had dial-up.
Seriously. Oh my God. We had the dreaded three-way call that you had the friend hiding on the other. Listen, we did the work for them. They have no idea.
We walked so you could run, okay?
Exactly.
Focus on your sustainability efforts.
Seriously. And I can't wait to see that article you're doing about Pluto because we are going through a big one right now, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Pluto and Aquarius, it's going to be really big. And I think it needed. I mean, everything is needed, right?
Would you say it's like an age of Aquarius?
Yeah. I mean, it's a dawn of a new era, Aquarius is about change, people, humanitarianism, innovation, and Pluto is about regeneration and death and rebirth. And so humanity needs to be rebirthed. It's like a lot of shenanigans. And I think it sounds a little scary. I've learned not to focus on things that are out of my control. And I think those big catastrophic life events, wars, all of those are terrifying and frightening. But I think people need to focus on what part they play in this. How can you help? How can you be more humanitarian in your everyday life? Like, we're not going to alone change one thing, but collectively, which is Aquarius energy, we can move the needle on a lot of things. And so I think I don't want to scare people about Pluto and Aquarius. It's like, no, this could be a beautiful time if we all lean into what our gifts are and we share them and we help each other.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure it out for myself. I have Pluto in my 4th house, which I believe is the house of like home and family. So I'm like, what does that mean? Is someone going to die?
That's ancestral. So that is, the childhood that can be difficult, but it really rebirths you in a way, like you're supposed to rebirth and you're supposed to change
Hmm.
your generational because Pluto is about deep transformation and change.
Hmm.
So if you have Pluto in the fourth, you are someone that's probably here to break up ancestral patterns.
I wonder if that's my choice to not have children, if that's what I'm doing to
Yeah,
not
and
pass
that could
anything
be
on.
your right, and that could be it as well. And I
Yeah.
think that's totally fine,
Yeah.
right? So
Cool. Thank you for that validation.
yeah.
Well, you've definitely had a journey throughout your life, and you're such an accomplished person, and you've tried so many things. You've, like, put yourself out there and just learned to see what really truly suits yourself and how you can better yourself. But was there ever a specific decision that you made that changed the trajectory of your life?
Yeah. I would say the first, there's probably three,
Mhm.
deciding to be like stand firmly in being an astrologer, obviously.
Mhm.
Another one would be deciding to get divorced because I feel light, free, hopeful. It was one of the hardest things because I was
Oh,
in
yeah.
graduate school. I was working a full-time job, trying to launch this business. My gift of the Nile was my capstone project. It was just a lot.
Yeah.
And so to carry that and then trying to sell my house, it was just a lot going on.
Wow.
And so, but that on the other side of it, I'm like, oh, like I am here. Like I'm like,
Mhm.
this is my time. And so I feel like that was like definitely something that I was supposed to experience, whether I knew it or not. And then another would be to like stop working for other people,
Mm.
you know. And that just happened in November. And since then, I've had so many opportunities, validation, things just kind of aligning to say, yes, this was the right choice, and you're just getting started, and there's like a beautiful path ahead. If you stay focused, you stay true to yourself. And I just feel just the most like myself than I've ever felt. And I think that, and again, nothing's perfect. I still have a lot of challenges, but it feels good to like be myself and know that I'm like serving myself first.
That's so inspiring, and those things, wow, like, not easy decisions to make hastily or to come by. Like, I'm sure it took a lot of time and a lot of pain and a lot of stuff that you went through. It's like you went through another Saturn return.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like that, but I mean, it was similar. I have Uranus in my seventh house of partnership and marriage. Uranus brings change and disruption. I had the eclipses hitting me in both my first and my seventh house,
Ooh,
me and my relationships. But I also now have Jupiter there in Taurus, blessing me on the other side of it. So because I could see the transits coming, I was able to leap. And also, I will say that I don't have children.
hmm,
I didn't have like, you know what I mean? I think it's easier to make decisions like that when there's not a lot of people don't have that
yeah,
luxury. Actually blessed to be able to have made that
mhm,
decision. And I know for some people it's bigger than that. You know, they have multiple assets and family to take into consideration if you're thinking about, splitting up a partnership. But I also feel like no matter what the challenges are, if it's something that's really repressing you and you're not able to show up as your true authentic self and you're not happy and you don't feel like you're on the right path to achieving what you're meant to achieve with another person, then you might have to let it go no matter what the consequences are. Because do you want to get to the end of your life and say, I wish I would have done this differently? That to me is scarier than actually doing the hard
yeah.
thing now.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Congratulations. Like, I don't know if
thank
congratulations
you.
is the word or not, but
Well, people have said congratulations to me when they're like, congrats. And I'm like, yeah, thank you.
yeah,
Like,
that
like
was hard. That was something hard you did.
it was
Yeah,
hard.
and
Right,
now you're on
right,
the other
right.
side of the rainbow and everything seems to be kind of panning out and all these things are coming to you and it's just again, it's such a testament to letting go and creating space to allow the things that are meant to be to come through. And I love that. That's such a
Yeah. My word for 2024 is trust.
ooh,
Like, yeah. And last year was alignment. So,
nice.
aligning with everything that was meant for me. And now it's trusting that I'm in the right path and I don't need to control. I mean, I have a lot of control tendencies in
Me
my
too.
chart, a lot of fixed energy. And I'm trying not to control. I'm kind of just flowing. Being in flow state is so much better than being in like control, like anxious state.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. I battle with that constantly.
a lot of people do, yeah.
Mhm. Well, it seems like you are very grounded in who you are, but I do like to circle back to my first question after having this conversation. Would you still introduce yourself in the same way?
Definitely, for sure. I think I'm clear in that being my purpose.
Nice. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. That's again, that is so inspiring to hear someone just know themselves so well, and I hope that it inspires other people to kind of even look into their chart or just meditate on it, get into your body, and just become your own friend and see who you are,
Yeah.
what you're capable of. Tamerri, where can the people find you? Can you want to plug some things?
Yes, you can find me. My website is astrofashionista.com. So that's exactly how it's spelled, Astro and Fashionista. That's where you can like book astrology readings. My Gift of the Nile website is thegiftofthenile.com, where you can purchase spiritual wellness products. And then the handles are at Astrofashionista and at Gift of the Nile. So that's the easiest way to find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing
Thank
yourself.
you, Lori. I appreciate it.
Me too. Thank you. You've been listening to the Identity Shockwave podcast, hosted by me, Lori Vaitzig. Catch us next time for a new episode with a different guest that is sure to keep the conversation interesting. A big thank you to Let Me Crazy for letting us use their music. I'll catch you later.
Can you feel it bang in the air? Can you feel that day?